Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's highly anticipated debate, Faith versus Reason, the existence of God. Millions are watching around the world as two intellectual titans go head-to-head. On my left, Dr. Richard Wallace, a celebrated atheist, philosopher, and best-selling author of The God Delusion, Revisited. And on my right, Jonathan Reid, a 26-year-old philosopher, scientist, and rising intellectual whose groundbreaking arguments on faith and reason have captured the world's attention. Dr. Wallace, let's begin. Why do you believe faith in God is an illusion? Thank you, Anderson. Let's not waste time with pleasantries. The idea of God is nothing more than a comforting delusion. Science has dismantled every so-called argument for his existence. Religion is a psychological crutch, a relic of primitive thought that intelligent people should have outgrown centuries ago. Jonathan, your response? With respect, Dr. Wallace, that's an assertion, not an argument. Dismissing billions of believers as intellectually inferior is hardly a rational position. Science has indeed advanced, but it has not answered the most fundamental questions. Why is there something rather than nothing? What is the source of consciousness? Why does mathematics, an abstract concept, so perfectly describe the physical universe? These mysteries remain unsolved. Dr. Richard Wallace chuckles, leaning back. Oh, Jonathan, I expected better. You're appealing to gaps in human knowledge, the classic God of the gaps fallacy. Science will answer these questions in time. Jonathan Reid, that's an assumption, not evidence. But let's address your claim. You argue that science has dismantled arguments for God. That's false. In fact, modern physics presents more reasons to consider God than ever before. Have you considered quantum mechanics? The observer effect in quantum physics suggests that consciousness influences reality at the fundamental level. This raises a profound question. Why should an unconscious, accidental universe be structured in such a way that consciousness shapes it? Dr. Richard Wallace, that's pseudoscience. Quantum mechanics is complex, but invoking God to explain it is pure desperation. Jonathan Reid, I didn't say quantum physics proves God. I said it opens the door to something beyond materialism. But let's move to morality. If God does not exist, what is the basis for objective morality? Why is human life inherently valuable? Dr. Richard Wallace, grinning, but with a hint of unease. The tired morality argument. Morality evolved for social cohesion. We don't need a divine lawgiver to tell us murder is wrong. Jonathan Reid, then morality is subjective? If tomorrow society decided genocide was acceptable, would it be? Dr. Richard Wallace pauses, the grin slipping. Well, no, but... Jonathan Reid, then morality must transcend human opinion. It must be objective. If moral values exist independently of human minds, then where do they come from? They cannot be grounded in evolution, culture, or preference. They must come from an external, immutable source, something beyond nature. Dr. Richard Wallace, defensive, that's a false dichotomy. We determine morality rationally. Jonathan Reid, rationality alone cannot create objective moral laws, just as numbers do not create mathematics. Morality must be discovered, not invented. Moderator, let's pivot. Dr. Wallace, what about near-death experiences and consciousness studies? These phenomena challenge materialist explanations. Dr. Richard Wallace, visibly frustrated, tapping his fingers on the desk. Hallucinations. That's all. The brain plays tricks when deprived of oxygen. Jonathan Reid, then how do some people accurately report events that occurred while they were clinically dead? Why do certain cases contain verified details they could not have known? Research from institutions like the University of Virginia has documented these cases. If consciousness is purely a product of the brain, these experiences shouldn't be possible. Jonathan Reid, the problem isn't a lack of evidence, Dr. Wallace. It's an unwillingness to accept where the evidence leads. You demand empirical proof for God, yet science itself is based on faith. Faith in the rational intelligibility of the universe. Faith that our cognitive faculties perceive reality correctly. But why should an unguided, purposeless universe give rise to beings capable of discovering truth? Dr. Richard Wallace, now visibly irritated, voice rising. That's a rhetorical trick. Science progresses without faith. Jonathan Reid. No, science progresses because we have faith in reason. But if we are merely chemical reactions, why trust our reasoning at all? If our thoughts are determined by blind physical processes, then truth itself is meaningless. Moderator. Dr. Wallace, your response? Dr. Richard Wallace. Begrudgingly, voice subdued. I'll admit, some of these points are thought-provoking. Jonathan Reid, leaning forward, his voice steady, his words precise. That's all I ask. Dr. Wallace. Thought. True skepticism questions everything, even skepticism itself. A single clap echoes, then another. Suddenly, the room erupts into thunderous applause. Wallace leans back, stunned. The moderator struggles to regain control as the audience roars in excitement. Clips of the debate go viral overnight. Reporter, Jonathan, your performance tonight has taken the internet by storm. What's your reaction? Jonathan Reid. I think it shows that faith and reason are not enemies. If anything, true intellectual pursuit demands we consider all possibilities, even God. Reporter, Dr. Wallace. Would you debate Jonathan again? Dr. Richard Wallace hesitates, his expression unusually pensive. Let's just say, I have some reading to do first.